Thank you for joining this presentation on employee discipline procedures at an international school in Chengdu, China. QSI International School of Chengdu operates in Chengdu, China as a school for children of foreign workers. While it is not actually a member of a typical school district, for the purpose of standardized testing and accreditation, it is considered a member of Quality Schools International District, which includes 37 schools worldwide. For this information session, a limited discussion on the rights of an employee will be addressed, as well as policies regarding disciplinary measures and terminating employment. This school is obligated to follow the policies of Quality Schools International and the Chinese labor contract laws, as well as conditions agreed upon in the contract. The employment contract is written to include many of the policies contained in the employee booklet. Interestingly, both labor laws and QSI headquarter policies highly value the rights of the worker and place the burden of proof for any wrongdoing on school administration. While the members of the teaching staff are foreign, they are covered by the same policies as local staff. In general, employees are very well protected by employment laws. This is important to understand, as hiring must be done very carefully. Observations in the first year of the contract are vital, and an issue must be well documented in order to revoke a contract mid-year or offer a non-renewal. Policies become particularly important when an employee is performing below par. There is one benefit that QSI employees have through Chinese labor laws that is not covered by QSI policies. For an employee, once a third contract is offered and signed, the employee is considered a lifetime employee of that organization. Based on the QSI employment booklet, there is no obligation for either the employee or QSI to continue employment past the initial contract. The obligation of the employer is vastly different, but as a school operating in China, Chinese law is upheld. So the policy actually states after an employee finishes their second contract with your company, they shall be offered a lifetime contract as the third, unless they want another fixed term contract instead. That means the employee gets to choose. Such a non-fixed term contract can only be terminated if there are grounds for dismissal. A fixed contract generally refers to part-time work, and a non-fixed contract refers to full-time work. All employees, part-time or full-time, are considered permanent upon signing their third contract. If the employer and the employee come to an agreement, the contract can be dissolved, and this usually includes a severance package for the employee. We will begin by looking at the labor laws of the People's Republic of China. The laws were established in 1994. Article 25 and 26 discuss employee dismissal. For Article 25, an employee would have to have seriously violated the rules and regulations of an organization and have caused great loss to the organization through gross negligence of duty or malpractice or personal gains, or if an employee is under investigation for a crime by the authorities. For Article 25, immediate dismissal is allowed. For Article 26, termination is allowed only with a 30-day notice or an employee payout. So the first part of this article states that when an employee returns from non-work-related disability leave, if the employee is not able to return to their original position or for the specific work arranged by the employer, then the employer is allowed to dismiss the employee. And the other part of it is that if an employee is unqualified for his work, then and remains unqualified even after receiving training or readjusting the position, then the employer is allowed to offer a 30-day compensation, and the contract can become null and void. In both instances, there must be sufficient evidence in order for this to take place. It is expected that the specific policies are the responsibility of the organization. The labor laws cover all industries and all workers, both skilled and unskilled. So to cover the specifics, QSI policies are updated each year in the employee booklet, and the employment contract is reviewed by the QSI legal team and also the local attorneys. The labor laws were written with the expectation that organizational policies and the employment contract would address employee conduct. The QSI employee booklet explains the code of conduct for employees. A breach of conduct, according to this document, would initially warrant a verbal or a written warning. However, dismissal may be the outcome depending on the severity or the frequency of the misconduct. The following behaviors go against QSI policies, and these are all written in the employee handbook and also in the code of conduct signed each year by staff members and volunteers. School personnel and volunteers are prohibited from physically disciplining a child. One-to-one meetings with a student must be observable and interruptible. Faculty, staff, employees, and volunteers should refrain from the illegal possession and or the illegal use of drugs and alcohol. They should refrain from the use of tobacco products, alcohol, and or drugs when working with children. Adults should never buy alcohol, drugs, or cigarettes, or reading material or videos that are inappropriate for young people. And staff members and volunteers should not accept gifts or give gifts to children without the consent of the child's parents or guardian. The QSI Chengdu employment contract is the definitive document when discussing employee behavior and expectations. To be considered legally binding, the contract must be written in Chinese. Since the employee booklet is only written in English, the contract must clearly state the expectations and causes for discipline. The employment contracts are reviewed yearly by both QSI Regional Legal Team and also by our local attorneys, and it's written in both English and Chinese, so the signer understands what they're signing and that it's a legal document according to the government. Based on the contract at QSI Chengdu, these are some of the issues that maybe a teacher may be dismissed for. One is a failed background check, and the failed background check could be because the teacher can't get a background check or they didn't get a background check in the time allotted. If they're unable to obtain a work permit, and the final decision of that is with the authorities, the local authorities, there is a confidentiality clause that states that they should not share details on salary and benefits, and that is a little unusual for to be written in a contract, I think, inside the United States. If they're employed elsewhere at the same time, foreigners are only allowed to have one position, and that's the one that holds their visa. If the employee violates anti-bribery laws and the regulations of the PRC. And on the other hand, if the behaviors are habitual, for example, if a staff member is constantly late or leaving early without permission, if they engage in behavior that ruins the school reputation, if they're using the school or equipment for non-school related business, with any fighting or abusive behavior, or if there's gambling, use of alcohol, or use of tobacco. So these are all very explicitly written out, and the conditions are also within the contract for the employee to read in English and for the officials to read in Chinese. There is protocol to follow when offenses are committed. So a less serious offense may be tardiness, excessive absences, the lack of planning for a class, or poor classroom management. And for a less serious offense, there would be verbal warning, written warning, and probably an improvement plan. An improvement plan would be something written by administration and followed up with the employee. An example of that will be given in a little bit. Serious offenses would include excessive tardiness or absences after warning, incompetence in the classroom after retraining, and illegal actions, including those that break our child protection policies. So a serious offense, you may be immediately dismissed. There may be a dismissal with a 30-day notice, or there may be a dismissal with a severance package that's agreed upon by the employer and the employee. In one example, we'll talk about a case study that happened recently at this school. An example of this is a current employee who began the year with personal issues which interfered with his ability to appropriately teach his classes. Based on school policy, the teacher was counseled and placed on a 30-day improvement plan, during which he submitted weekly lesson plans for each course and was observed 2 to 4 times each week by administration. The improvement plan and the observations were recorded in the teacher's online performance review. If the teacher did not improve, then termination would be considered. And this was fully discussed with the employee at the start of the 30-day intervention. This teacher had already signed a 4th contract and is considered by the labor laws to be an employee for life. So in order to terminate the contract, the employee will have to agree to a severance package offered by the employer. Of note, in this example, the employee had already given notice that he would not return the following year. So worst case is that the teacher would be on campus for the rest of the school year, but would not return for the new school year. By the end of the improvement plan, the teacher was following his lesson plans and was teaching appropriately during class. His classroom management remained less than ideal, so lessons in some classes were still less effective than they could have been. The teacher has remained on contract as there is no longer a legal basis for termination. But he also remains on the observation list and his class is closely monitored. In conclusion, when dealing with discipline issues, the administrator needs to understand the local laws, school policies, and the employment contract. If a staff member is underperforming, then remediation needs to be offered before a contract can be terminated. However, if there is gross negligence or very poor behavior, then a staff member may be terminated with no notice or with a severance package, depending on the offenses. A few key takeaways that would be of great assistance in the future is that administrators should always understand the laws and policies, especially in a foreign country, when hiring new teachers, because at some point they become part of your organization for as long as they choose to. Policies should be clearly written and well explained so an employee understands the expectations that the school has and also their responsibilities. And observations and documentation are paramount. For all of these disciplinary actions, it is very important that the documentation is right on target and that the employees are kept abreast of all information so that they do not have other legal means to maintain their employment at your school. On the final page, these are the references, including the labor laws and the QSI booklets that the staff are given each year. Thank you very much for watching. Bye-bye.